All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by none other than Paul Stafford of Blue Collar Endurance Training today. Paul ran at FSU and the University of Colorado Boulder, boasting collegiate PRs of 13:56 in the 5K, 29:12 in the 10K, 23:20 in 8K cross country. He's from the great state of Florida, where he ran 4:12 in the mile in high school and 9:05 in the 3200. He recently opened a online coaching consulting firm slash team where he runs a 6 to 8 week long summer camp for elite high schoolers and coaches some of the best runners in the country. Paul, how the heck are we today?
Doing great, man. I always love sitting down and talking training and just you know uh, spreading some knowledge. So no, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Last time we were together, we were in Boulder. It was probably 3 days before blue collar
Yep.
endurance training camp kicked off. Was
Dude.
it everything you dreamed it to be?
Oh yeah, and then some. I mean, I imagine that this fall, like the camp will boast 100% PR rate, um, which like I'm not really big on like things like that because it seems like a guarantee. But the kids put in the work. That's really just what happened. We gave them the environment to do so. They got it in, and yeah, man, a great 6 weeks out in Boulder. So
Yeah, I want to get into the details of sort of what that looked like. It looked awesome. And I had a similar thought. I was thinking there's no way these kids are up at altitude for 6 weeks under great guidance of Coach Stafford, doing the weightlifting. And I remember one thing I said to you before Landon Jonas from Wesleyan uh, came out to Boulder. I said, just don't kill them yet. It's a long time before their season. Did you ever, at any point during the camps, start to see the kids like get a little too competitive and want to push it too hard?
no, it's so crazy because I felt like I really instilled like the efforts in them. Like I think sometimes there's a time and a place to know when to shoot your bullets. Like Steve Magnus would always say, you get one bullet a week, right? And a lot of times in the summer, it's really just about stockpiling that. And so just like save, save, save. I mean, we didn't do a single workout until the last week of camp. It was just a lot of easy running, a lot of lifting, just increasing that weekly volume, strides twice a week is just a lot of people would see that as basic and not sexy, but it's put these kids in a position to where they really haven't like gone there yet, and we're still in August and November. They're going to be in the right spot. So like, I really enjoyed how things were set up.
Yeah, where does that saying, "When Thomas," I always see him saying it, and I actually like it a lot, come from? It's getting fit to get fit.
Man, Mark Wetmore actually said that. He said that like to the guys like a couple times, that especially in the early periods, is when he would like emphasize it. Um, and I think the idea behind it is that you have to do like the boring, monotonous stuff early on. Again, like I just mentioned um, in the previous answer. Yeah, you in order to get fit from those workouts, like the race specific stuff, because you can get fit from that, but you need to get the gains first from the easy stuff. And yeah, anyways, that's where I've heard it. Win, but then I'll also mark. So
Yeah, I thought it was going to be an FSU thing, but then it was actually your Colorado coach that coined that term. I love it. It kind of reminds me of I had a assistant coach at Lovett when I was in high school, and he had this saying, "You can't win cross country state championship in the summer, but you sure as hell could lose it." So it's
yeah,
like, don't be a hero. But I want to
yeah,
get deep into the weeds about blue collar and endurance
yeah,
training and the
yeah,
camp and
man.
whatnot. But before we do that, I want to learn a little bit more about your athlete experience. And I kind of want to pick your brain about a few things and hear about your experience because when I hear you speak and articulate training, you really seem like a true student of the sport to me. And you really like to get into the data science driven approach side of things. And it made me wonder what was the training system that you were introduced to in high school? Because and if it goes back before high school, like you're one of these kids that's been running since the fifth grade on like a structured training program, go back there. But I figure like most kids in middle school and lower school, they're out just out running. There's no real system or
Right.
anything like
Right.
that. So tell me about like the first true training system that you were in and what your experience was.
Right. I mean, so I've been running since I was 8, but it looked different than you might think when I first say that. And so a lot of these kids, you'll see a lot of good runners have soccer backgrounds, tennis backgrounds, things like that, where they're getting this like sneaky training, but you don't really realize it. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Love
but for me,
athletes.
they're just athletes. But it usually comes from those sports though, where the heart rate's elevated for a long period of time. That's why I say soccer and tennis,
Yeah.
basketball even. But no, yeah, whenever I first started training in a structured fashion, that actually wasn't until after my freshman year of high school, even though I'd been running since I was 8. I did AAU track in the summers. But that was 3 days a week of training. And I think the big thing with that is like I continued to love the sport, but it set it up to where I just learned how to work out. I learned, and I think learning how to work out is a skill. Being someone that ran at Ole Miss, you probably like know that like for sure. Like learning, there's some kids that get to college, they don't know how to work out. But no, so the first structured piece of training that I really got was just simply volume. It was simply like learning how to, um, you know, run easy with strides twice a week and then do a long run. And that was like the first time I actually got structured training. And boom, I shot up. I went from an 1830 kid to a 1640s kid. But then, because I was doing too much, and I was like, oh, well, I got to go do this like sprinting practice, like, because I didn't know any better. Um, I tore my hamstring. I missed my entire sophomore year. And that's something you don't see from distance runners. They don't tear hamstrings. But then I kind of transition, and now I've got this early on experience of dealing with a major injury. And I think dealing with that major injury early on really like I saw the trickle down effect of it in my last 2 years of high school. But not to get like too much into the story, but yeah, that was my first bit of structured training. Was that so?
Yeah, that's interesting what you say about the injury early on actually kind of helping you later on. It's like if you wanted to make someone really wise, you would probably give them a lot of failures so that they would learn from it.
Yes.
If you wanted to make someone really patient, they would probably have to endure a lot of bullshit to develop that skill. So like a lot of these setbacks early on seem like the end of the world, but actually long term they end up helping you. And was it just who was your coach, and was it just your standard like strides, mileage, strength workout, speed workout, long run? Do that over a long period of time, you'll be a good runner.
Yeah. Well, like um, I was a little bit more fortunate because it was more personalized, if that makes sense. Like he knew how to watch me. He knew what he was doing. Shout out Coach AJ. But yeah, it
Wait,
was
wait, was it AJ Ricketts?
Richmond.
Oh, I
Richmond,
thought it
yeah.
was the SMRC coach. And what
No.
was his background?
Well, he was a 63 half marathoner. He was from Florida, moved to Boulder kind of during his 20s, like I'm doing now. And then he moved back, and I just so happened to meet him, and he happened to be local, and it just worked out well from there. But yeah, I mean, I not to like just continue to fire off Steve Magnus quotes, but like he would always pull the Frank Shorter one, where it's like 2 hard workouts, a long run, as much mileage as you can handle. And we swing in a bunch of different directions all the time with training talks and like just the newest flashy workout. But ultimately, if you can stack something within those bounds of what I just mentioned, then you're going to be in a great spot. You know. So
Yeah. And why did you make that transition from freshman to sophomore year where you started to get that structured training? Did you get that new coach at that point in time?
yeah, and I was still doing AAU, and so I probably should have given that up. That's a big lesson that a lot of kids should learn. Do not try to train with two coaches. It's just you can have two collaborating coaches, but you can't have two coaches. It's just not. It's not going to work in that regard. Now, to get a little bit more specific, running and strength is fine. You know, running and nutrition is fine. Running and psych is great. Like all those are great. Running, no. That's not going to work. Running collaborating, absolutely. I have like coaches like at different schools around the US that I'll like talk with about their athletes training. They're observing and giving me feedback, and then we're both collaborating and writing the future schedules. But um, the clash is not going to work, and it's not, honestly, it's just going to make life pretty difficult for everyone involved. So
Yeah, it's not like you can do like 60% of the recipe and get even 60% of the result. It's like all the whole training plan or none of the training plan. Like maybe a recovery day they go and do easy mileage or yoga with the team, but yeah, you can't do two systems in one.
no, it's
Um
kind of cram too much.
yeah, exactly. And it's just like misalignment. Like every single workout and day has an objective and it's all in harmony with each other. What was the first book that you ever read to be a student of the sport of running, and how old were you?
I started off like listening to a lot of podcasts, um, and I found that you know the books are great, but for me at the time, I think podcasts were just like better for me, and it was just a lot of Steve Magnus early on for me, and I think Steve does a great job because like he kind of gives you the right perspective in terms of like writing training. It's about like you brought up science driven. You brought up science driven, and I more so define myself as science guided rather than science driven, because the real world cannot like mimic the lab or replicate the lab. There's a lot of variables that are thrown into it. I mean, just to name a couple: shoes, surface, weather, fueling, how much sleep did you? All these different things. It just you cannot try to replicate the lab in real life. It's just not practical. But Steve kind of really taught me as a coach that it's more about art. And then I had a conversation with Pete Julian a couple of months ago, and I think back to like this one piece of information that he gave me when writing workouts. It's more about being an engineer than it is about being a physiologist. How are you going to build a bridge with this first session so that 10 weeks later we can do this session? And is all the sessions in between, are all these sessions preparing us for what we're trying to get our body to do on race day? You know? So it's yeah,
Yeah.
those are some of my that didn't really answer your question either. I guess to give you a book, Running the Lydiard Way is a good one by Garth Gilmore and Arthur Lydiard.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like podcasts in this new digital media age came until later. So did you really start studying the sport? What was
I was
that,
20,
June 20?
20.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so did your parents, when you were sixth grade or eighth grade, whenever it was doing AAU track or 8 years old, did your parents kind of push you in that direction or it was just what you did?
With track, it was more so that I was just good at it and I liked it and I liked the friends around me. And I felt like I had a different love for the sport like before I started doing structured training and a different love for the sport after I started structured training. And I loved it for different reasons. Um, I would say structured training by far exceeds the initial love I had for the sport, which is kind of interesting because you'll see some people fall out of love with the sport because they love the initial feeling that they got with it. But the fire is like brighter than it's ever been for me currently. Um, yeah.
Same.
Anyways, Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder because sometimes I think about making a piece of content that's basically the message is, hey, you guys need to be students of the sport. You need to like get up to date on what's going on, learn about it because some of the best kids that I coached in high school, they obviously know Cole Hawker, but they couldn't tell you who Hobbs Kessler is. No shade to Hobbs. Just like
Yeah.
not A tier athletes, and they don't even log their runs on Strava. I'm like, you guys need
Yeah.
to learn about it and be students of the sport and get accustomed with it. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, these kids also know how to just show up and run their asses off, and that's it for them. So I
Yeah.
kind of go like back and forth on whether I think I should like give these kids books to read or just kind of let them fall in love with it on their own time.
No, that's really really interesting, and it's different by the athlete. I mean, I have one particular athlete that he's run 8:13 for 3K, but he's 16 years old. So he's very good for his age. He's obsessed with like watching races and like studying like how people make moves and things like that. Like he's genuinely obsessed. And you look at successful runners, successful entrepreneurs, successful anybody, they're obsessed with their craft. Now, I I think about someone that maybe that's not what they're interested in. Uh, as a coach, just give the athlete what they need and like don't try to like force like these things on them because like I've tried to give athletes like information and probably like 10 seconds into the conversation I realize they're not really interested in this. They just want to know the roadmap to get where they want to go. And so I'm going to give them that. I'll give them a brief why and then let them go do their thing. um yeah, so very interesting topic there though, for sure.
Dropping bombs, man. Yeah, I got a few questions about Calvin Sites that I want to ask you. I mean,
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
I don't. Well, they're going to come later when we get
Okay,
into
okay.
more of the blue collar side of things. But I'm curious to know what his background is because I mean, killer in the aerobic side of things. What'd you make of Cooper Lutkenhouse, 142, 16 years old?
That like I've watched a lot of track, right? And I've been a fan of the sport for like 17 years now, I guess. Um, man, like that was my jaw like was on the floor. I was like, wow, that's an eye popper, man. And yeah, definitely one of the greatest like athletic feats in high school history. Like I I think if you compare sport to sport, which is very difficult to do, there's not many sports where like a young athlete like that, like there were kids commenting on the post, like he's like, I eat lunch from this kid, and
Yeah,
and Bryce Hopple's a grown man in the prime of his career, and that's like, and Bryce had a heck of a run. He had a hell of a run, but man, no, I mean, analytically, I want to look at what he does for training, obviously, but I have really not the slightest clue. I'd like to dig into it more, but just looking at the performance itself, wow.
yeah, he's a stud. He actually is coached. I found this out recently. He's coached by one of my Ole Miss teammates, Cade Bethman, his coach from high school. I think he does like a lot of fast stuff, quality, doesn't really train like a distance guy, except I think he can run like 357 in the mile. So just
Yeah, okay, okay.
generational talent, stud, runs like 37 seconds and 300s all the time, I assume. I think he maybe
Yeah,
could have gone a little bit faster. Did you see how hard he closed?
it's just ridiculous, man. But people have their racing styles. Like that's fair. But like, I mean, there's always the question, like,
Yeah.
okay, how could you tweak this race to go faster? But just like beauty of a performance for what it is, you know.
Yeah. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, always. I just need to be happy with the 142 at 16 years old.
Yeah, man.
What
Yeah.
what was the thing or what is the thing you're still competing at a very high level? What is the thing that you lean on and take very dearly to your heart that is your biggest strength in running? What separates you from someone who's just a good runner?
In my own personal running, I think it's not the sexy answer, but it's just like willing to out recover somebody. I love that term. I've been using it a lot lately. Out recover, because it turns the outside of training into a competition in a way. People, when they think about competing, they think about competing with their teammates in a workout or competing with someone in a race. But if you have that mentality, then the competition like never actually stops. You know, that's
Yeah.
that's one of my. I think that's my biggest strength.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think about this. So like freshman year of college, I went on a tear and it was sort of like an ignorance is bliss thing. I was just stupid freshman, go run with the seniors as hard as I can until I dropped. And when I got on the race line, I was like, well, I'm going up against Justin Knight, so no one expects me to win. I might as well go with him. And then sophomore year and junior year, I had the thought, well, I was a jackass last year. So if I tighten up my diet and my sleep and my recovery, I'm going to get better just obviously and naturally. And then I stopped eating sugar. And then I obsessed over not putting as much fat into my body. And then I started intermittent fasting and I was in the training room doing boots and ice, every single day. And I focused too much on recovery. Do you think that's a thing? Do you think you can focus too much on recovery, or do you think it was like a mindset issue on my end where I thought this was going to be the thing that made me better, but then I lost focus of what was important, and that was being a savage on the track?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's about like uh, making sure your habits are like directional in terms of like actually getting you where you want to go. Um, like these fancy diets, ultimately, it's as sexy as they may look and as sexy as like the influencer may hype it up to be. Uh, you just need a good amount of protein, good amount of carbs, healthy fats, fruits, veggies, something good for you, and then some just good rest. And then, if I had to put recovery on a pie chart, sleep and nutrition would get you 85% of the way there. And I want to say that again, 85% of the way there. Literally, like the most basic shit that people don't want to change. Like right now, if I say sleep and nutrition, there was probably someone that I just their brain just turned off and they didn't notice it. It happened subconsciously. Is because they've heard it so many times. But people take performance enhancing drugs to get the same thing that sleep gives you. Like, like there's people that'll do like HGH, testosterone, like all this, just like have a consistent sleep schedule and just eat a decently solid diet, and just do it for a long period of time. But yeah, yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. This sort of segues me into another tangent, and I'm not sure if you agree with it or not, but I think people in general, not just kids, run their best when they love their life and they're full of energy and they're excited to wake up every single day. What do you do that gets you fired up to get on the track? Because a lot of times people are resistant to the work, or it feels like a chore to them. But when you're like pumped up to get out on the track and go smash a workout, I think it's probably what yields the best results, at least from a psychology standpoint. What type of things get you fired up about running? I know we were talking about like the types of races that you like to do last time I was in Boulder, but talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, one, I find that a lot of my motivation comes like intrinsically and not like from somewhere that's not that way, right? Well, like if you're motivated by things like achievement, notoriety, like trophies, all those things, then that cup will eventually be empty. And that's life. That's how it is. But whenever it comes to things that are intrinsic, personal growth, um, finding your potential, self actualization, those types of things are nearly infinite in terms of like the cup. right?
Right.
Just to keep on that metaphor. But um, when you lean on those things for your motivation, that's when you'll really like find that, man, you're just, especially once you get a little bit of momentum and start seeing a little bit of progress, then it's like you just have to get out of the way at that point and just keep doing what you're doing. Mark Wetmore would say that to me. He would say, like, before a race, I was doing well. I was contributing to the team. I was a 14:24 guy coming in to see you, and then I was on the top 5, which is like, that doesn't happen, you know? And, but I wasn't thinking about it. But before the race, Mark was just like, Paul, just keep doing what you're doing. And it just like lifts this psychological weight off your shoulders. It makes it very much so this uncomplicated issue. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Do you feel a responsibility or an obligation to perform well yourself, given that you coach a wide variety of athletes, or do you draw energy from the fact that you are a leader to 20, 40 some odd kids?
You know, when it comes time to perform, it's really just I've done all the work that I can do. That's out of the question. Obviously, I want to do well, and I have people that I want to do that for. But I'm more so concerned with my athletes seeing that I like. Let's say they just look at my chart on Strava. Like, I don't really give a shit about Strava like that. Like, it's not the end all be all. But if they look at that and was like, damn, like Coach P, he logged like a full, like, you can't, the chart goes beyond the 12 weeks, but it's like way up there, so consistent. That's the lesson that I want to teach, because that's what's going to help all the athletes in the long run. Is that it's not necessarily that, oh, I got the result. You know, the result's nice, but I want to set the standard of how they should be working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm kind of the opposite. Like, my consistency and my structure isn't where it should be. But I tell all my athletes, you got to be effort times consistency equals confidence. But I guess I cope in a way by, and this is something I'm wrestling with in my brain constantly, is like,
Mhm.
I say I coach first as like an insecurity cloak over my performances, to be like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm just focused on the kids that I coach. So I'm trying to figure out what is my place in this sport? Like, what is my
Well,
place, like, as an athlete, not as a coach? Like, what am I
mhm.
doing? Am I just going on these vacations and adventure racing? And I mean, that's what I think I'm doing. But at the same time, am I just like avoiding the hard work and the consistency and the gym twice a week because I can skate by with decent performances, just like, running 6 days a week? It's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. No, man, I mean, I think for you, like, that literally makes me think of like this Mike Smith quote where he says, like, you need, and he's talking to coaches when he's saying this, you need to be willing to walk the same street as the athlete. But that doesn't mean with miles necessarily, right? It can be reading a research paper once a day. You could, that's like, let's say you're spending 30 minutes on that. That's a 5 mile run, 4 mile run, whatever. Like, that's how I would look at it. There's different ways to put on a different hat and sharpen the brain a little bit as a coach. It doesn't have to be through miles. It could be any type of research paper, any type of resource.
Yeah, that reminds me of the standard that I had, when I was coaching a high school team. It was like, we do not drink. Well, first of all, we don't drink alcohol, period, because we're not 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to, you don't do that in season. And I guess as a coach, it's like, yeah, well, you're not the athlete. So if your recovery's hurt, then it doesn't really matter because you're not racing. But yeah, I think that'd be if you have that standard as a coach, I think it's fair to say that you should hold up to it yourself. Just takes from performance. Anyways, that was a bit of a sidetrack. I want to talk a little bit about FSU, not a ton. I'm more so just curious about their training system and coach starts with a
Coach
B.
Brayman.
Brayman,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
legend.
Oh, absolutely.
Rumor has it there would be 3 workouts a week, and Saturday long run after workout. Is this true?
Yeah. I mean, now workouts are relatively challenging. Monday and Friday were the more challenging days. Wednesday was more so a maintenance day, if you will. Very almost just four sets of strides is what I would say. So,
Six
um,
by 200 on, 200 off, just like not
sure,
even a workout, glorified strides. Yeah.
four sets of 3x2, but they're like at like 32 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not crazy.
I kind of had my high schoolers on a system like that just because some days I felt like 10 by 200 on, 200 off was just a little bit more quality than a 4 or 5 mile mileage run, especially since they're low mileage and they respond well to quality. Um, how do you feel about doing a long run and then the next day, or doing a workout and then the next, like a hard workout, and then the next day doing a time on feet long run? Because I've done that. And personally, I think long runs should be at a quality effort. I think it's one of the days where you can almost maybe treat it like a really long threshold, maybe more lower into tempo, and actually like improve your fitness on that day. Tell me about the difference in the two. I know you've experienced both.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at FSU versus CU, right? FSU easy long run, and that was done after the Friday session. And then if we like zoom out, then that means we have the Sunday very short recovery day, um, and then we have like a session Monday. Now that gives us 3 days during the week where it's like recover, then we're going to halfway recover because it's not really a workout, it's pretty chill, and then we're going to recover again. But yeah, no, I think that it depends on what you're trying to do. And this like goes back to being like an artist in a way when you're writing your training. Um, you have to place the days in the week and give proper recovery spacing depending on what we're trying to emphasize. Now, in a program where the long run is not emphasized. It's not a fitness building tool. It's just kind of going to be there as like a time on feet thing and just kind of getting a longer um, but gentle aerobic stimulus. Sure, you can place it after the Friday workout. If we're trying to use the long run to build fitness, though, look at like the CU setup Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Now that gives us the Saturday beforehand, just the short, super chill day, 5 mile run, maybe. You get the long run, you can get the volume in, higher quality. Then you have Monday easy, Tuesday easy with stride. So there's just a lot of spacing there on the calendar to give the long run respect because it's a big fitness building tool in that program. So you just have to look at it from that kind of lens. What is your long run used for? You know?
Yeah, when you're at FSU doing the time on feet long run, what volume would your strength day be in the ballpark of? Like, would that be a almost like a long run day, like 18 miles or so?
So when you say strength day, you're saying like just like kind of doing
Tempo
some high.
threshold, mile
Okay, cool.
repeats. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those kinds of days, I mean, especially early on in cross season, we would do Monday, Fridays, right? But that would be somewhere from 7 to 9 miles of quality, but it would be continuous quality, which is a bigger load than broken quality. 7 miles continuous is significantly more different than 7 miles broken. Um, but yeah, that's where we would end up. 9 was the high range. We never went to 10. Um, and then, yeah, same thing Fridays. It was like 7 to 9 miles continuous. So,
Yeah. And so I guess after going through the two systems, how do you structure it now for yourself? And what's the race that you're training for right now?
so right now I'm probably like 70 something days out from the Valencia half marathon. Um, Training's going well. I mean, the past 3 weeks have been 94, 94, 98. And the structure that I'm working with is Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So Wednesday, I'm using as a lot of people are nowadays are using just a
Double
very high,
T.
yep, very high volume threshold day. But I'm using information that helps me guide myself to the appropriate effort. So I was tested recently by Jared Berg, who is a local registered dietitian and like physiologist. Um, and yeah, he's just given me tailored targets to hit, which is for someone like me that doesn't have a coach and I'm writing my own stuff, that information is invaluable. Um, and so Wednesday, I'm going to be like 18 miles or so, like total running. And then it's going to be like 12 and a half miles of threshold work probably. Friday, right now I'm working with a lot of Z2 work, which not like influencer Z2. I'm talking like Tadej Pogacar Z2, like that like top end of just aerobic engine building. Basically the same effort I do my long run at pretty much. For me, that's 605 at altitude and about 164 beats a minute. But I don't want to get too into that piece because I truly do feel that that type of training is just not, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you if you're 99% of people. Like if you were to look at my numbers on Garmin or Coros or whatever, how much I train harder than like a percentile or like the 99th percentile of the population. So I don't want to get too into that, but Sunday is like another 20-mile run and I'll end it going 8 miles up a canyon to get like faster fiber activation while I'm in a fatigue state. Because when you're running on a grade, you activate more fibers. And Canova does that with his Kenyans a lot. So
And you engage those hips, and hills pay the
yeah, man.
bills, baby.
Yeah,
Learning how
man.
to run on tired legs, run fast on tired legs is huge.
It's, I mean, it's the whole thing, right? People do pre-fatigue sets all the time. Like if you're getting ready for a 3K, I love something like 200, 200, 200, 500, or 300, 300, 300, 500. And the last rep is the focus of the set. And that's like at goal. Um, yeah. Anyways, no, I love pre-fatigue work. It's so helpful.
So 10 weeks out from big half marathon, super competitive. I imagine you're going to run something disgusting, like 63 minutes there. I'd have to know exactly what 63 minutes means. When do you start incorporating speed work, like true speed work, like 60-second 400s, if you'll even get there?
Yeah. I've actually, I mean, I've been doing speed work pretty much in low doses like all summer long. You know, I've been taking a lot of rest on my strides. I get really warmed up for my strides, and when I'm doing like hundreds, I'm going under 13. Like, for a guy like me, that's moving. That's like 98, 99% of effort. And I say not 100 because if you're going 100% out, your mechanics just fall apart. Like you're just sloppy. So I always say 98, 99% fast but relaxed. But yeah, I'm doing it twice a week, every single week. 30-meter flies I like to do. I like to do 60-meter reps. And then after some of the flies in the 60s, I'll do like 1 by 150. That's all I just touch it and get out of there. And I heard this actually a couple days ago. I really liked it. If you are doing like fast reps like that and you do like a rep where it's like, man, like I don't think it's gonna get better than that. Like that was a really high quality rep. You're done.
Just
You're
cut
like
it. Yeah.
great. Like call it. Like yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways,
if you can't progress, you might as well stop because whatever you do after that's not going to be productive.
correct. Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah. So it sounds like you are doing speed development and staying sharp, but it sounds like you're not ever doing more than 1,000 meters of speed work, and you're doing a lot of threshold on Wednesday. Your Sunday long run, you're probably getting between 5:30 and 6:05, 6:10 range, a lot of volume there. When do you get the large amount of volume between 420 mile pace and 5 flat mile pace, if ever? Or do you think those, because that's going to, your race pace for the half
Right.
marathon is going to be around 5 flat?
it'll be somewhere.
Maybe
It'll definitely
faster.
be,
Yeah.
yeah. So like that, whenever we transition into it, right? And you can't start it too early because it is like, especially coming from someone that's dealt with injuries before, if I start it too early, that means I'm going to have to sustain it for a longer period of time. And I'm kind of looking for that minimum effective dosage where, okay, if I can do it for this many weeks, then I'm going to be healthy and I've done the work, you know? Um, and the way that I really, especially being in altitude, it's harder to do denser reps up here. So I really like quarters and 500s because you can kind of get that heart rate up with the short recoveries where like I'm breathing, like, but my mechanics are not falling apart. And it's just very specific to the half marathon. So I can just run like 70, 72, 73, non super shoe, right? And so we get to sea level. I'm caffeinated like for the first time in months because I wait. I throw the caffeine on race day, and yeah, I really like force for that at altitude. Now the beauty of sea level is that you can kind of extend those reps a little bit there. But realistically, I will probably this whole block I will probably do 2 mile repeat reps at like 440 to 444 pace. Like last fall for the Netherlands, I did maybe 2 mile reps at like 448, and I was and they were hard. I was like, how the hell am I going to do this at
Do
sea
that for
level
the whole thing.
without a break? But I get into it and it feels way easier. So you gotta know where you are, know yourself, be confident, trust the training, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember when I saw that Netherlands run that you did where you set the Puerto Rican national record. When I saw that, I think it was like 6 months, 9 months after you launched Blue Collar. I was like, shit, this dude is fast. And then I looked at the picture you posted, and there's nine other Europeans around you, and I'm like, damn. And I think you were in like the chase pack. So it's crazy, like how many like insanely fit dudes are out there that we don't even know about.
Yeah, I one of my good friends, Don van der Velden, he's from the Netherlands. But he was telling me, he was like, that guy's ran 210, that guy's ran 207, that guy's ran 211, and I was like, oh, sick. And I'm the one doing the pacing. Cool. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and you had
but
you had to lead them. I saw because no one wanted to take it.
well, I didn't know this, but there was prize money. I was just running,
Mm,
and sure enough, I get 26th or 27th place, man. Like they were counting places for €100. Like, come on, man.
wow. Yeah, you came to run fast and get a national record. What ultimately led you to Boulder after Florida State?
uh, really, it's always been a dream to come and train here, and be around like an endurance focused culture. Um, it's just always been a dream. Like I reached out to Colorado in high school, and obviously I just got sent back to standards. I wasn't good enough, but to have that opportunity after Florida State, like it's not how I would have wrote it up, but it's how it happened, and I'm thankful for it for sure.
Yeah, and you made a massive leap, as we were talking about earlier, from Florida State to Colorado, like, 1425 kid to top five on the cross country team and big contributor. What is the top one or two things that you would contribute to that big progression?
Sometimes in life, whenever things are just kind of stagnating, I think you need to make a leap. And you've kind of done this yourself. You've kind of done this with your big move, like across the pond, change up the environment, and changing up that environment, just like kind of, it just puts you in a different mode. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. You're just in a different mode, different, different consistency, different routine, different mentality. And I think good things come from that. I think like you should definitely consider moving around. And for some athletes, like that's just a coaching change, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's like you're back against the wall. You're in an unfamiliar place. You're uncomfortable. You don't know that many people, so not a lot of distractions. So yeah, it's huge.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
And you still reside in Boulder, Colorado. Any plans on going anywhere else? You in Boulder for the long run?
Yeah, I'll be here for a pretty long time, I think. It's just, you know, great place to train, great people. I've got great friends. And uh, it also like helps that, the camp is here, like training with the high schoolers for 6 weeks. Yeah, I'll be here for a while.
Yeah, I'm going a little bit off the script here, but what would be like such a smart idea in Flagstaff or Boulder, I think, for a real estate investor would be to get like a big house that can fit a lot of beds, a big kitchen, and Airbnb it for 3 months over the summer so that kids can come do training camps and like even professional groups. And it would be like a runner's mecca, get some woodways in there, maybe a sauna, maybe a
Just a
plunge.
just a training center, man. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I mean that's ultimately a goal of mine. I would love to have a facility where we could do something like that for our athletes. Now, 5 or 10 years down the road, maybe we've figured it out enough to where we can make something like this happen. But that's definitely a pipe dream of ours for sure. I've thought it, you're thinking the same way I think. Just like the resources that high school athletes have available to them, it's very scarce, and like that's probably why people would be on this call right now. It's because they're trying to learn, and the environment that they're in is not conducive enough to quench that thirst for knowledge and resources. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I actually, big secret coming out here on this podcast. So June 2026, I'm moving back to Atlanta and I'm going to open a physical location for training and recovery and maybe a little bit of retail, sell some shoes, sell some apparel, maybe some coffee, but it's not going to be an Airbnb. It's going to be like on a
brick
trail.
and mortar. Yeah.
Yeah, run clubs, elite development, high school team, middle school program, youth team, whatever. But I'm gonna be working on that for the next 9 months. Before we
Dude.
run out of time, I know you're doing double threshold day. You're a busy man. You're running an empire over there at Blue Collar. I want to talk about Blue Collar. It's January 2024, and you just launched the company. You're coming out with the amazing video shots where you've got the mountains in the background, you've got all the on swag. What's the initial feedback you get from teammates, people in your inner circle, spectators? Is it mostly positive? Did you see any haters? Tell me about that.
Like I mean, you'll hear a lot with people that like make it big on the internet. Like just take like a guy like Speed or something, for example, like a streamer. Like he was doing that dumb stuff that he was doing with like no viewers. We were fortunate enough that I had a little bit of experience on TikTok, like kind of posting content already. Um, and towards the end of like when I was posting on TikTok, I kind of posted more about like training, and then that kind of like just led me in this direction. But no, I mean, people will encourage you, but like, I mean, I'd be lying if like some people like probably like didn't think to themselves, oh, like he's just one of those guys. You know what I mean? Um, you just gotta you just gotta continue to do it. It's just like running miles and getting fit. You just got to continue to post. You got to continue to put yourself out there. It could take you 5 years, but it took us like a couple months to get some real traction, which is like we're fortunate. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some people that like behind closed doors would say some stuff, or maybe some people on some burner accounts. But
Yeah.
quite frankly, I always try to respond with kindness and grace when people comment stuff on our thing, or I just ignore it.
Yeah.
That's just
Well, also, it's like you're not trying to be popular. You're not trying to be an influencer. You have intellectual property that you're sharing with the world and providing value to them. Now, whether they agree with everything you say or not, That's fine. I think, some
Yeah.
opposing viewpoints are actually helpful in the coaching space. Um, but yeah, a lot of people like maybe want to get into coaching, but they're just so, and I was the same way, just so scared to like actually post online. But once you get over yourself and just say, all right, screw it, I'm just going to teach the world a lesson here.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it becomes a lot better. Did people immediately, so, okay, sorry, let me back up. What do
No,
you
you're
think's a
good. You're good.
better, what do you think's a better business tool for your coaching business? TikTok or Instagram? Where do you get more leads?
I mean, Instagram probably, I would say. It's
Or do
just
you just
that's
send
what
them to your website on both of them and you don't know where they come from?
we have like a system to where like we just ask people where they found us, and if they want to tell us, then they can tell us. And then that just would like go into like a sheet so we could see like, oh, like, okay, we brought this many people in from Instagram, this many people in from TikTok. But no, yeah, it's Instagram. I don't know, man. I just feel like if you're willing to provide like value um in a world where people gatekeep, I think that's the key. There's so many coaches that are like just like so afraid to show what they know, but in reality, if you want people to believe in you as a coach, you have to be able to show what you know. So it's just kind of backwards in that way. That's why I always love you can't fake obsession and passion and knowledge. You can't fake that. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world either. I'm learning every day, but I've read and learned so much in the past 5 years of doing this that I'm just like, man, I'm going to be a weapon at this when I'm 30. I already feel like I'm pretty confident right now. But
Yeah. And then to any other like aspiring coaches out there who maybe you do have a really extensive education in endurance sports, no one, unless you go the NCAA high school route, no one's going to know about your product or service unless you put it out there. So, like, you may be the best coach in the world. If you can't find people to work with you, then you're not going to be able to put that coaching to work.
right,
Calvin
right,
Seitz, stud,
yeah.
kid's a beast. What makes him so great?
He recovers better than a lot of professional athletes that I know. He he's constantly thinking about his training, um, and he's just doing everything. Like if he's not in bed by 9, he's grumpy. He loves to do it, and that's the thing. That's the thing. There's a difference between the person that goes to bed at 9 because like their coach told them to do so, and the one that does it voluntarily just because the coach mentioned it once and he knows it's going to make him better. That's Calvin. That's what he does. But um, yeah, and we're just very routine and businesslike about everything. He does some pretty like impressive long runs for his age,
What's an
and
impress? What's? Give me some numbers.
550 sea level, 12 miles. But like, it's right in the effort pocket that we need to be in. Um, and some people look at that and like eye pop, it's like too much, but like that is routine and business like for him. So it's just again about knowing the athlete and what works for them. Uh, that's why I think like Dathan does a good job with the people at OAC. It's because he has that perspective, um, and so he can see like he's not scared to assign things like that relatively to that professional level. You know, so
Yeah.
I about that a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point about like doing what you're supposed to do because you want to be the best that you can be versus doing what you're like. For me, it was going out and socializing. Like
Yeah,
Friday nights and Saturday nights were always really tough for me because I would just think about the people that were out on the town having fun. But like Kobe Bryant, Mario Garcia Romo, forget Kobe. Don't forget Kobe. Rest in peace. Mario Garcia Romo, he's having a well balanced meal, getting to bed at 9, not because he's disciplined and he has to be doing that. It's because his mind is at the NCAA championships, watching himself cross the line, and he doesn't want to do anything that's going to take away from that moment.
yeah.
So
David
that's just,
Malarkey, same way. Adrian Vildsky was the same way. I lived next door to both of them at Florida State. Like Adrian was out. He was knocked. And he was up in the morning, like ready to go for practice. Like David Malarkey, same way. He was sixth at NCAs in the 10K now at NAU. But no, yeah, man,
And
just different
and there
priorities.
and Adrian, I don't know David, but Adrian, he's not grumpy at practice the next morning at Jacob Holmes because he went out to recess until 3 o'clock in the morning because he's going to get his. Now we could go into a long discussion about leadership and getting people on the team on the same page, but I don't even want to go there.
No, that's a whole nother thing. College teams are different. I mean, I think the point is just to highlight the people that are great, and it's like that's what they do. You
Yeah.
know.
Um, so you talk a lot about effort pockets and like wanting to find that right zone to be in, whether it's in a workout or early on in the race. Out of lactate testing, heart rate, feel, paces based off of 10-man pace calculator and a race result, or perhaps you could tell me about another one with all the testing that you just got done. How do you communicate to, let's just use Calvin, for example, because we're talking about him. How do you communicate to him what his effort should be on a tempo or threshold workout? Like, do you just give him paces, or do you say this should be conversational, or you should be between 160 and 180 beats per minute? Tell me about how you communicate to your athletes the effort that they should be hitting.
So the heart rate's never going to be the number one driving force. It is like kind of something that's in the background. And I mean, that's because it's so variable. I mean, heart rate's been around for 50 years. We talk about it like it's high tech, but it's been around for half a century. Um, but for someone like him, I mean, I like to have a list of training definitions. And I know that sounds crazy, but I literally have a list saved of 30 plus, closer to 40 probably, training definitions in different categories. Some of them are just like general training elements that you should know, like weekly volume, like things like that, or block versus a cycle, things like that. Some of them are effort ranges. And I've actually broken threshold now into two definitions: true threshold and pressed threshold. And so some people are like, oh, that's LT1, LT2. We don't need to get into all that. Let's just like give them a word that makes sense to them and then give them guidelines on how to properly execute it. And so I do that with every single athlete. Like they're week one with me, they get that full list of training definitions and they know like now by looking at the schedule, oh, SJ/R, that's a supplementary jogging slash recovery day. SJ or supplementary joggings from Arthur Lydiard. It's just a shakeout day. But
Yeah,
it gives them all like there's so much language out there around training. I give them my language and that way we can be both speaking it because I think that's so important. Um, but yeah,
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 that's sick, man. You're literally developing like your own training system
yeah.
and pulling it from all different places. Like you're making your own zones, press threshold. It doesn't fucking matter what all these scientists say, LT1, LT2, millimoles. You're like, no, this is Paul Stafford's definition of this. I'm your coach. Follow this, and then there's no debate.
Yeah. It's just like like that's roughly where we want to hit for the day. So we're going to assign X distance by X reps at press threshold. Or sometimes maybe I'm like, start at true and then last two reps at pressed. And so it's like purposefully like changing the effort a little bit. And then like as we start to get into like the nitty gritty, like the last preparations and whatnot, like we have all this information purely from the effort stuff that we can now meld into like these like paces. Cause like now we're doing a race specificity. Like we don't care about the effort now anymore. Like we would like to feel this way, but it's more important
Yeah,
on the day to emphasize the speed.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it goes back and forth, man. It's like never one thing. It's all over the place.
totally. Okay, I got two more questions for you, and then I'll let
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get back to rest and recovery and on to session two of the threshold. Well, okay, three more questions.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to start with this one. What's the training today? Walk me through your day.
So this morning I woke up at 6:30. I had 2 packets of oatmeal, about 60 plus grams of carbs. Walk out the door to the local middle school where the track's a quarter mile away. Um,
Niwat, is it?
uh, n- no, it's not Niwot. That's a little north of town. But 2 security guards greeted me and said, "Kids have school today. Sorry, you gotta be done by 7:30." Um, so I turned my happy ass right around. I went home and I did 5x2K on a road loop, and I was just looking for the effort. Yeah, sure, I tracked heart rate, sure, I tracked lactate, but I mean, I'm pretty good at dialing it in now. It was where it needed to be. Um, then got home, immediately crushed like 3 pancakes and like 3 hard-boiled eggs and a protein shake. So I'm now working with like 100 plus grams of carbs, um, maybe closer to 150 depending on what the pancakes were. And I was also taking carbs during my session, because I know that I'm about to have to go back out there in the afternoon around like when it's really hot, and I'm gonna have to do probably like 10 by K, maybe some Ks and then some fours at the end of the Ks. But ultimately I'm just trying to get like 10K more of work in there. And then I'm consuming just a lot of carbs and just bread throughout the day, rice, pasta, things like that. And yeah, just really just living it the entire day. And then I go to sleep. And just like
Yeah.
this is my biggest training day of the week probably.
I want you to check out what I posted 5 minutes before. Well, once we get done with the call, five
Okay.
minutes
Yeah.
before we got started today, it was literally like you guys need to be hammering carbs, have carbs before your workout, during your training, afterwards, because you're going to deplete your glucose or glycogen, and that's harder to come back from. Anyways, just check it out whenever we're done. I'll
Yeah.
shoot you a
I
text.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's like it's the biggest. It's one like nutrition wise, I wouldn't change much from high school, but I would fuel before and during activities because I was one of those kids that would hammer espresso and then go out and rip a long run and be worthless the rest of the day.
Mhm.
How do you build? I'm just going to use Calvin for the example's sake. How do you build his mileage and how do you add on to it each season or each year?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head already by asking the question. Each season, each year, because that's how you should build the mileage. Um, that those types of adaptations that you get from increasing your weekly volume, those are adaptations that take an extremely long time to reap the full benefits of. He ran 50 miles a week pretty much all of last year. As a kid that ran 14:24 and 8:13 after like turning 16 midway through the spring, like people are like, what the, there's no mileage there. Like you expect that kid to be running 70 miles a week. Now, I mean, we're just taking the next step forward. We're going to bring him to 60 to a point where it's like, all right, like this is enough stimulus to get the body to make a change. And that's all we're looking for. Because sure, we like he recovers good enough. I could have probably got him to 70, but we don't need to do that because the body's going to change at 60. Let's just like preserve that 52 low speed that he's got. Like let's just preserve that, and let's just let's do 60 this year. Um, yeah,
Yeah. 10 miles per week per year is my like rule of thumb. It's not even mine. It's actually Cam Hanes, who isn't even like a student of the sport of running. I mean, I guess he is.
it's just a good guideline.
Yeah. And obviously, I'm sure you've heard 20% of your weekly mileage is your long run, but also with him, like he's going to be a junior, right?
Yeah, rising junior. Yep.
Okay. So 60 miles this year, 70 miles the next year, 80 miles when you're a freshman in college,
Sure,
done and dusted. 100
it
miles a
sets
week when
you
you're
up
a
well.
junior.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
why
and
that's why I love working
Yeah,
with
that's a really good point.
sixth and seventh graders. I'm like, look, we've got 6 years. If we can stay healthy and consistent for 6 years, you're going to be at 60, 70 miles a week as a high schooler, even if you're not some super talent or, or some savage that has a really high pain tolerance, you're going to smoke these kids.
You're going to beat at so many people relative to like your ability. Even if you're not as talented, you're going to beat a lot of people just by being consistent for that period of time. Yeah, I'm fully with that.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Are you ready?
Yep, let's hear it.
What do I have to pay you to go race 100 miler for speed?
For speed. The minimum amount, man. That's so tough. Dude, you're gonna think I'm nuts, like for setting the bar like so high, but I, it's a different world for me,
You'd crush it, man. I'm waiting until Connor Mance does it. He could go like sub 11 hours.
dude. Yeah, 100 miler, man. You probably have to you probably have to pay me 75K, probably. I would say,
Oh
dude.
man.
It's just I'm loving like training for like the roads and the track so much right now that it would just be like pulling something away from me, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
reason why the price tag is so high on that.
Yeah. You've got a lot of other stuff you need to go accomplish in the sport. Like you haven't even run a marathon yet. And you're
Yeah.
still like, I got all the faith in the world that you're, going to keep rising among the ranks. Okay. I keep thinking of other questions.
You're good, man.
What
Yeah.
What is so you got the Puerto Rican national record on the national or global stage. Do you represent Puerto Rico or Team USA? Or like what
Well,
national championships would you compete in?
so that's the thing with Puerto Rico, it's very interesting because the federation, like FAPUR, which is essentially the USATF of Puerto Rico. The thing with them is that right now they're kind of in some hot water with just a lot of athletes in general, and the people are not very happy with them because of how they run their organization. I've just been seeing social media posts about FAPUR about banning this guy Ryan Sanchez, who's a 144 guy, from competing at NACAX or something like that, and it's because they suspended him or something like that. And from April until July, and he competed like 3 times from April to July. But he was like, "Well, I was unattached. I didn't compete under Puerto Rico at that time." And then the federation's like, "No, like you weren't allowed to compete at all." But so clearly, there's just the number one thing that they're lacking is communication. Um, and I mean, same thing. You could probably talk to John Rivera. Like he broke one of their records, and it took like a million years to get ratified. And I'm kind of in the same boat right now. It's like I ran the 15K record, but it's going to take a million years for it to get ratified. Like, I mean, we would have a pretty good team at World Cross Champs in Tallahassee in January. Like, we'd have a solid team. When
That'd
you
be
look at
so
like,
fun, man.
yeah, I mean, my roommate, his dad is Puerto Rican, and my mom. Obviously, I sound very Southern. My dad's from Kentucky. My mom's Puerto Rican, full blooded. Um, it would be me, my roommate, who also ran at CU, who's a very solid athlete, Victor Ortiz, who ran like 520 for a 2K steeple, and then Hector Pagan, who I want to say he ran like 29:20 or 29 lows in like extremely hot conditions. Like it was like a
Sauna.
steam. Yes, yes. So no, we would score a good 4, but the federation is terrible at communicating, unfortunately. So, anyways, we're working on it, but man, like
So you're
right,
like kind of on the fence, don't know, so you're not competing in these national events because you don't know what direction it's going to go.
like I'm just like trying to focus on the running, and a lot of times when you run fast, like that stuff can take care of itself. You
Yeah.
know, if you're just like an on the fringe athlete, then you're gonna get like on the fringe responses, I feel like. So anyways, it
Yeah.
just train hard, eventually a door will be opened.
Yeah. You're doing all these cool destination races and getting national records, but I want to see you in like U.S. half marathon champs on the roads in Atlanta, or like topping
Yeah, dude.
Brian Clay, just selfishly because I want to see you out there with like the dogs competing, which
If I
obviously
can
you're
stay
competing
healthy.
against dogs still.
Yeah, man. I mean, if I can stay healthy, I would like to have a very successful track season myself. I've got some cool things that we're not gonna talk about publicly yet, but we can talk about it off call. But what that we want to do this track season with some of our kids. But um, yeah, man, I'm excited for what's to come.
Let's go, dog. Well, let's leave the audience hanging on that one. Paul, it's a pleasure, my friend.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thank you
Best of
guys for.
luck. Totally. Best of luck. Well, William, Aaron, Alton, do you have a question by chance? You can just unmute yourself and ask if so. If not, we're gonna wrap it up here. And best of luck in your training and coaching and keep crushing it, man. Consistency is key.
I appreciate it.